What's up, fam? It is your favorite time of the year. It is our NFL Draft Pod. Joining today, and as always, my co-host and longtime best friend, Abe Granoff. And around this time of the year is our specialty draft analyst. Abe likes to say, our very own. Who are you going with these days, Abe? Is he more of a Kuiper or a McShay?
He's our resident Mel Kiper. I mean, I can give him Mike Mayock if he wants.
No.
I don't think you want Mike Mayock.
We're not doing that. But Josh Maurer is here. He is our draft expert. We'll actually reference back to one of the best calls of last year's draft to this year's draft in a little. But Josh, how are we feeling? This is your time of the year. Are you as excited as everyone else?
Good. Yeah, I'm feeling great. That week of the draft hits, it finally becomes a little real. So I'm just butterflies all around, excited to get started, and thank you guys again for having me on for what is this, year
three or four
at this point?
Three or four.
I want to say it might be 4, but I don't know. It might be 4.
I think it's at least 3 for sure. But
yeah, it's definitely 3.
But anyways,
what have your days been like? The 2 weeks leading up to the draft, you're crunching film, you're pushing out mocks. What are your days like? What hours are you putting in?
My days are pretty hectic right now. We're in the middle of spring ball over here at Cornell. So, 6 a.m. wake ups. We got practice early mornings, things like that. Then, I got to do my homework here and then got to grind the tape for the NFL draft as well. They don't really pay me to do that here, unfortunately. So, got to put that extra work in, make sure I'm ready for the podcast, the whole 9. So,
there we go, man. Well,
it's worth it.
You do. The reason we have you on is because you do the work so that Jack and I don't have to. So the draft is 3 days away. I think this will be coming out draft day. Maybe not. We'll figure that part out.
It'll be Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, I want to start with a topic that I've seen on the timeline recently.
Before you get into it, I just want to say one thing. I know you're in your flow there, Abe. So there's rankings to mock drafts. Do you actually put out an official mock draft, or it's more of like for internal use? Because are you telling me this couldn't be our thing as you come on every year and we're just trying to find the perfect fucking mock draft? I want you on those rankings.
No, yeah, I think my official one is posted on, here through, verbally, but I haven't entered into the contest or whatever. I think I do pretty well compared to the McShays, the Norrises of the world. I know they have a 5-year output ranking system, the whole 9. So I think I'd be
all right. So you know what we're talking about with the ranking system. We got to. Why not? It doesn't cost anything, does it?
Just my reputation.
Time is money, Jack. Time is money. You know that better than anybody else. But before Jack rudely interrupted me, what I was going to say, and I saw this on my timeline today, and it's kind of the vibe that I've gotten. Maybe that's because I've done no research. But does this draft suck?
Yeah, so it seems like the collective take, and I think one of my misses from last year was I said this draft would be generational. That was also a quote I might have said. So you wouldn't
generationally bad.
Yeah,
wait, you weren't off there. You were on.
I didn't specify, which generational, but you see a bunch of the GMs, kind of Brandon Beane, in the latter half of the round, actively reveal how many first-round grades they have on guys this year, and it's an extremely no number. I think a couple guys said 16. Brandon Beane said, I don't know, but it's not very good. So I think overall this entire draft is looked at pretty poorly by the rest of the league. There's depth in certain positions, obviously cornerbacks, tight ends, things like that. But at those premium positions outside of quarterback, really, it's a tough look.
How many first-round grades did you give out?
Yeah.
I'm a little tough, so I grade out around 16, 17.
Okay,
that's what
all right.
Like.
Not a great draft.
That's one thing I saw on the timeline today, as well as I'm obviously seeing a million things leading up to draft week. I shouldn't believe, and the audience shouldn't believe a single thing they read on Twitter this week before. It's all smoke screens, right?
Yeah. So, my general feeling is you get a chunk of information post combine about that month after, then you reach the point where everything becomes just ridiculous, unbelievable, the whole 9. But I think this year it's a little tough to call out that bullshit because everything. Sorry, can I curse on here? Everything is just so uncertain and crazy, even from pick 2 on. So it's a little bit of a unique year in that.
So is that you confirming that Bryce Young will be the first pick in the draft? Is that because when it first began, it was Stroud and all the Stroud steam, but now it seems like Bryce is going number 1.
Yeah, I think I was one of those guys who also thought it would Stroud kind of fits the Frank Reich build. They even said, Josh Norris had a series on Underdog with Josh McCown, who was talking about how Stroud he related him closely to
What
Burrow.
A plug. What a plug.
No, it was a thing.
It's true. It's like one of the true tidbits you could take out of this whole process. So he comped him to Burrow. The love was there. He said at the pro day, I think, Stroud's pro day, "Oh, I can't wait to hoop with you in Charlotte." So everyone thought it was done deal, including myself. It was done deal, and rightfully so, because the guy who is going number one is like 5'8", 180 pounds, like just not that typical quarterback look where guys have gone number one overall before at that size. But it's just interesting with Frank Reich, who's consistently coached over 6'3" quarterbacks for majority of his career, no matter how bad they are, Wentz included. It was just interesting to see that we're leaning young. I think it's a lot of an ownership push, maybe more than.
Are you surprised there's nothing official out there yet? Because the Panthers even said, right, that they don't know who they were picking, which you trade for the first pick to not know. I guess the question is, why throw smoke screens when you have that pick? I've never understood that.
I think this year was a little interesting because they threw the smoke screen because they thought there was a possibility if they moved down from 1 to 2 with Houston, that Houston would take someone else and they'd still be able to get their guy.
Gotcha.
Houston kind of winning that last game of the season is franchise changing at this point and kind of the whole thing. So I think they, ownership ended up pushing Young a little more, maybe even some of the front office. When the GM was speaking in the press conference, kind of already talking about how Bryce Young is the quarterback, he said that he didn't even really consult Frank Reich yet at that point. And Bryce Young was already like minus 1,500 or something to be the number one overall pick, which is a little weird, but I guess we ended up with the 5'8" quarterback is number one.
So let's talk quarterbacks. And Jack, I don't know if you're getting this vibe, but I sure am from Josh right now.
I am.
Sounds like you don't like Bryce Young.
It's not that I don't like Bryce Young. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I don't like 1 percenters, 1 percentilers, guys who are have not been seen to succeed in the NFL anymore. So I think the height is something.
Who are examples of those 1 percenters that were previously drafted in years?
Baker Mayfield was another short QB. Kyler Murray was a 1 percentiler, although Kyler Murray is a lot different than Bryce Young because he's so mobile, so much thicker in that build. Bryce Young had to drink, I think, 20 gallons of water to just weigh over 200 at the combine. So I think.
Is he in the 1% when he's wearing his Yo Bowl shoes, or does that push him up into like top 5?
With the 6-inch heels, I think he can pass for 6 feet tall, but he's not really fooling anyone. So that's something that the Panthers are going to have to work with inside of his game. But it's interesting because that height creates some problems for him, where he's a quarterback that understands he's very small. He'll stand very upright in the pocket, try to make himself as tall as possible to make all these throws, see the field, things like that. But because he's standing so upright, he loses a lot of velocity on his throws to the sideline, throws deep, things like that. So I think when the competition gets better, the floor gets raised, everyone, is a freak at the NFL. How will he adjust to that? How will his arm strength kind of catch up? And how will he deal with avoiding sacks as well behind a non-Alabama offensive line? So I think those are all crazy concerns to have about a number one overall pick you traded 3 first-rounders for and your number one wide receiver. So I don't purely get it. I would go in a very different direction if I made that drastic move from 9 to 1, but I understand the safer pick in Young.
My feeling is that whoever it is that goes 1, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they're not really set up for success in that organization. And any type of failure that they may have in the next few years, while you have to wait and see what that failure looks like on the field, might more so be a product of the environment that they're in. How much do you weigh Bryce Young's actual ability with the fact that he may just be going to the Panthers, and they're kind of, like you said, they traded all these assets to go up to first. They traded their number one wide receiver, and now it's like the rookie quarterback's got to have something to work with. It's not like he's sitting behind the bench for a year and learning.
Adam Thielen disrespect? I mean, what's going on here? Boobie Miles? I mean, that's a Super Bowl team. Adam Thielen, straight from his mouth. He said that.
That's true.
No, for sure. I think Bryce Young will probably have the smoothest transition to the NFL of all the prospects. And if you're going to have no weapons around him, Young's ability to kind of see the field, manage the pocket, be smart, is probably your best bet because he will be throwing to the injured DJ Charks of the world, the Adam Thielens of the world, the Boobie Miles of the world. It's not.
And Abe, I tweeted that. I said it's hilarious how these teams put their young quarterbacks in positions to literally not succeed. Like if I were building a team on a rookie contract, I know you want to build the defense, build the line, and that's part of it. But why wouldn't you give him a safety blanket? Why wouldn't you give him an elite skill position player instead of these older guys? But I will say, between McCown and Reich, you are installing him at least into an offense that has had a lot of success. So you could argue they made that investment.
Yeah, I think the Panthers are something like the highest paid coaching staff in the league, obviously deserved with their experience. Deuce Staley, Frank Reich, McCown, a little less experience. But if there's any staff you'd want to get the most out of a quarterback, kind of proven, I mean, Frank Reich made Carson Wentz look competent enough to trade him again for a second-round pick. So I think that's a good coaching spot to go to. It's unfortunate because in order to even get the quarterback they wanted, probably pushed by ownership, they had to trade every asset they ever had. They still have an early second-round pick, which I think they'll target either Mingo out of Ole Miss or Darnell Washington, so Frank Reich can run his wham. But just interesting situation tough situation for a rookie quarterback to succeed in, for sure.
Before we move on, let's just clarify. What the fuck is a wham?
Wham
What
lock?
is a wham?
I got to get on the board. It's basically like it's a
Looks
trap.
like you got a whiteboard behind you.
Yeah, you do have a board behind you, don't
That's
you?
actually just a big shade. But, yeah, it's basically just kind of a trap play where you allow the end to come upfield and the tight end is blocking the D tackle across.
Madden players know it.
The Colts ran it a ton with Jack Doyle. It's an effective run play, kind of a change of pace.
All right.
If the D-line are shooting upfield, trying to rush the passer, it helps a ton.
So, Josh, we got the vibe that Bryce Young isn't really your guy. You're not a 1%er guy. So, with that being said,
yeah, pay your taxes, eat the rich.
You are the Tepper family. You are drafting with the Carolina Panthers first overall pick. Who are you taking? Who's your guy?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for me to say because my job is not on the line, all these things, but I think the easy one is Anthony Richardson. I know it's a little different when you're not in the AFC, but I think scouting for what they are versus what they will be is something that the league is kind of caught up on a little bit. And Anthony Richardson has all the tools, that 10.0 RAS, free 4.40 at 240 plus pounds, 6'4", like all the tools. So if he does figure it out, obviously his ceiling's the highest. So I think if you're making a trade of 2+ first-round picks and your star wide receiver, shoot for the fences. But
Thank you. So Josh is not from the old school because I know you hang with a lot of those old geezers, and I think this is the problem with the NFL is the setup because, like you said, you're not trying to save your job. But the GM's job should be to win a Super Bowl. But really the GM's job is to stay employed as long as he can so he can keep cashing those paychecks, when in reality everyone knows Anthony Richardson is the best prospect with the most upside. And what I saw from, once again, we'll plug him, Josh Norris today, which I found really interesting, was that it's not that Richardson's raw. That's actually not his issue. It's that he's inexperienced. And that would make me 10 times more excited to say, all right, put him in the system, let him learn the game, and use these physical tools. How could Richardson not be the first overall pick? It's because the GM, he likes cashing those checks.
Oh, yeah, and it's always easier for us to say kind of behind the keyboard stuff. Same thing with fourth down decisions. I think this year, like on the headset during our games, like during crucial fourth down decisions, it's really calming to be like, I'm going to punt it. I'm just going to punt it. I'm not going to I understand now why people always fall back on the safer options, the more
when the lights come on, you can't fold. You gotta go.
100%. I agree.
All right. So Richardson's your one. We've got 4 quarterbacks: Bryce, Richardson, C.J. Stroud, and Will Levis. Rank those 4. Just let's not give them a team. Let's not give them a system. Just who would you grade out from 1 to 4?
Yeah. So I think I had Anthony Richardson number 1. We talked about it a little bit, but I think honestly, his floor might be also the highest. I think a lot of people have accepted this change, but your floor now as a rookie quarterback is your mobility, your ability to create, your pocket presence, things like that. And Anthony.
So you're not saying his floor to like failure. You're saying like in his rookie season, the worst he's going to be is probably it won't be as bad as some of these others could be. Because couldn't he be a massive bust?
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he's a guy who's completed that a little over 50% of his college career passes. He's very, very raw as a passer, as everything. But what he does very well is manage the pocket. A lot of nuanced things. He's not always looking down, darting his eyes, things like that. It's stuff that Justin Fields does a ton. He's calm in there. He's nuanced like that. He just needs to get the timing, the anticipation, all that stuff down, which comes with reps. And I say that as he has very limited reps. And the same thing was said about Trey Lance, who had less than 500 total passes before being drafted in his college career, and he never seemed to put it together to the point where the team wants to trade him for scraps. So it's not a sure thing, but I think with his mobility, things like that, I think over the term of his rookie contract, he has the highest floor of those guys.
Okay. I would actually argue that a high floor from a rookie quarterback isn't the best thing. When I think high floor, and correct me if this isn't what you're saying about it, I would want my rookie quarterback after the first 4 years of his contract, either you show me you're the guy or you show me you suck, so that I can make a decision whether to sign you or to move on. Because when you find that middle ground area, when you land in that Kirk Cousins area, when you land in that Dak Prescott area, that Kyler Murray area, that's when you put a franchise in purgatory. So a guy with a high floor who's, even if he's not great, he'll probably still be decent, in my opinion, is a nightmare situation for a franchise.
That's more so because you've just seen bad franchises make bad moves. If Josh is saying he's got the most upside and at worst he's going to be able to convince the Jags to give him
I want
a contract,
I want my quarterback to be a 13-4 guy or a 2-15 guy. Nothing in between. No.
I see. I understand that thinking. I'm just
because look at Zach Wilson. Now they have Rodgers.
If he's not able to become, that pure pocket passer or anything like that, I think you can win games with him and have an effective offense with the QB runs, things like that. I mean, you watch Justin Fields now, who's not the greatest passer, not the greatest, pocket presence, but they were able to move the ball somewhat and maybe grind out games because he has that crazy, athleticism where he can take it 60 any play, or he can, and I think Richardson allows you to run an offense that, you can win with more bad weapons. Similar to, the reason you're asking why the Panthers, couldn't.
Honestly, Lamar, that was like Lamar's rookie year. They found a way to win games because they would just keep the ball on the ground. All right, so Richardson's 1. I think we're actually all in agreement here. Who is 2, 3, 4? That's where things get interesting.
So for me, 2 is Bryce Young. And I know that's, contrary to what, the whole thing I went into about him being short, but the bottom line is if you just take out the height in the equation, yeah, he's the number 1 overall pick. And he's the number 1 overall pick anyways at 5'8". He shows this calm poise. He's one of the smartest, guys. Saban says it. A bunch of coaches said. He has all of those QB skills. He reminds me very much of a prospect like Joe Burrow, where the only thing you're truly worried about is kind of the sack avoidance, maybe a little bit of the noodle arm. But overall, he can make an offense go and does the smart things consistently to get you to a point of winning the game.
I'm
Jack.
surprised
Jack,
you didn't think.
You didn't realize this, Jack?
What he had? She stipulated?
That noodle arm comment. Josh hates Burrow.
I don't.
He
that's
hates
not.
Burrow.
That's
you
not.
have thrown the noodle arm comment around about Joe Burrow.
I didn't know that.
On numerous occasions.
Wait, explain that. I'm in for that because I think Burrow's. Yeah.
I think Burrow's great. There's nothing. I just don't.
I've seen you use the words Joe Burrow and noodle arm in a sentence.
Hold on. We're about to get it out of him.
He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, and he is responsible for a lot of the sacks that are taken in Cincinnati.
Okay.
I'm more upset with the narrative around him that, this is O-line, it's all these things where when he holds the ball for forever and causes a lot of those.
I asked, after they beat Buffalo in that playoff game, thanks to the snow, which neutralized the pass rush, I asked everyone who then moved Burrow up in the ranks, I was like, can you actually just tell me what Burrow does better than these other guys? And the answer was always just like, Bro, but he went, look, he beat out, no one could ever quantify what he does well. He is very accurate. Like you said, Burrow's great, but I think, those top 5 quarterbacks outside of Mahomes, it's a constantly moving equation. But what I was going to say, Bryce Young, I'm surprised you didn't think he has the highest floor.
I can see that from a traditional mindset. I just think he doesn't offer you that rushing ability that Richardson does. He's not 240 pounds. You're not going to want to sneak him on short, all these things. And for someone who's, just again, 5'8", 180 pounds, I know I'm beating it to death, but it's it matters. Being big, fast, strong matters in the NFL.
Yeah. He's given up 8 inches on Anthony Richardson, and I'm not talking below the waist. I haven't seen that stuff. And 60 pounds. You're probably giving up size in both departments. So,
and this I remembered what I was going to say, but Bryce Young actually finished his college career, I believe, with exactly 0 rushing yards. And I know the sacks count for negative in college, things like that. I believe he had maybe 250 on scrambles, positive yardage, but that's not that much for a college quarterback. So
we've got big moment. We've got Richardson 1, we've got Bryce Young 2. Who do we have 3?
Wait, before he answers, Abe, do you think he's an S2 test guy?
I was gonna say, is he a cognitive test guy or is he not a cognitive test guy?
Yeah, so I care as much about the S2 test as I do these guys, MW2 kill death.
What the fuck is an S2 test?
So essentially, what it sounds like it is. Now, there's many different versions of the test. The NFL and people in the NFL are trying to come up with new ways to basically quantify reaction time processing, things like that. The Wonderlic was very outdated. Something came out, AIQ recently, which I have a bunch of copies of players from the 33rd team. That one seemed to be pushed to the side, kind of the PlayStation versus Xbox for the S2, which they clearly dominated whatever marketing scheme they had, released it out left and right. They released one version of their 10 tests of the S2 scores where Bryce Young scored a 98% on, Stroud scored an 18. I don't care. I don't care. Bryce Young, the S2 test has existed for a while. Bryce Young has taken the S2 test every single year since he was a high school senior. He's practiced it. Him scoring a 98 percentile doesn't move me either way. Stroud scoring an 18 percentile doesn't move me either way. I think this is a great kind of lesson in confirmation bias where people are just using this random score they don't know anything about to either justify their love for Levis or their hatred for Stroud and kind of using that as a overall thing. I think S2 is just teams, they're always trying to paint the whole picture. They're trying to understand these guys' cognitive processing. I think an 18 score would be concerning if I cared what it was. But
is the S2 test publicly available?
It's not publicly available, so it's the only thing they
but we could take the one that Josh has. Which test was that?
AIQ. That one's not publicly available either. I only got a couple copies of the 33rd call.
So Jack and I will
it's public enough, sure. Yeah. Abe, I'm curious how you feel about this because I'll give my opinion. I agree. Confirmation bias. Bryce scoring a 98, I could not give a shit. Levis scoring in the 90th percent, I don't care. I do care if you are that off base. I'm not saying it overwhelms everything you see on the tape.
If it's that much of an anomaly in the trend.
I think it, and it's funny because CJ's PR team did a really nice job by getting whoever it was on the McAfee show today talking about, he was like, I don't want to say who it was, but there was one quarterback who took the test. He was really tired. It was 11 o'clock at night. He was in a bad mood. It was a pretty funny clip. Anyways, all that context is important, but 18%, no matter how you spin it, I think it's part of the equation. It doesn't overrun the whole thing for me. But Abe, do you care as much as his kill death ratio?
When I think this AQI chat GPT ass test that these quarterbacks are taking, I liken it to the Jokic and Embiid shit, where I'm like, I don't give a fuck what Raptor is. Just let's watch them play what they're going to do on the next level.
But the point is, what if Jokic's defensive metrics were 5,000, iotas away from Embiid?
They are. Jokic's defense. We're not going to do Jokic and Embiid right now. But my point is,
I love it.
But my point is, when this nerd shit comes into play, when we're talking hoops, when we're talking football, You know me, I'm an eye test guy, brother. Turn on. What do the players say? What do they say? What every guy that we had on the draft series, we had Mike Morris from Michigan last night. He says, "Listen, I may not have graded out well. I may not have tested. Turn on the tape. Watch me play football, not watch me play football drills. That's who I am. Maybe I'm a traditionalist.
I'm gonna keep standing up. I'm gonna keep standing up for the numbers, people. But I respect it, and I think there is a middle ground because all these things factor in. These are human beings, after all. It's not a computer.
And that's what people kind of get lost on. Real quick, last thing on the S2, until they release like proven data that high scores translates to good play, it's not worth anything. And the fact that Brock Purdy is being used as the poster boy for this makes me so sick because I don't think he can play either. But
that's another noodle arm guy that you've thrown around.
He is a noodle arm guy.
Yeah. Listen, my point is the S2 test, this is the first year that I've heard about it. And to me, it's just somebody trying to put somebody down so they could elevate their own. It's all a fucking game. That's how I view it. It's all a game. So you didn't say who was 3. Is it Stroud or is it Levis?
Sorry, I forgot that's how we even got
No, we were talking nerdy.
So I have Stroud over Levis. I think you watch him, he's probably the best 3-level passer right now, pure pocket passer, the whole 9. His tape versus Georgia, I mean, it's obviously the highest of the highs, but that is insane. To me, that shows you can get it done versus the NFL defenses most likely, avoiding pressure, the whole 9. He looked amazing in that game. I think a lot of teams may prefer the Levis, grit, big arm, more raw potential, things like that. But I think Stroud, kind of with his pocket passing, if he lands in the right system, could be a great player.
Do you factor in whatsoever? Do you factor in whatsoever the fact of the history of Ohio State quarterbacks? Obviously, Fields is looking decent now. But
no, he's not. That is such a misconception.
But listen, you have J.T. Barrett, Cardale Jones. Not really fair to say Haskins, rest in peace, because we didn't get to see him play out. And then Justin Fields has been shaky at the start too. Like historically, Ohio State quarterbacks haven't been great. Do you care? Do you and do GMs, do anybody care about that at all? Because for me as an Eagles fan, every year I pound the table. I don't really know who's going in the middle of the draft. I can't grade out offensive linemen. If you go to Alabama or you go to Georgia and my team drafts you, I'm going to be happy, plain and simple. So do you care about that, or do GMs care about where they go to school and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think every prospect is different, that old bullshit. But when you're evaluating Ohio State QBs or Alabama QBs, things like that, you need to ask the question, is it them doing this or is it their 3, top 10 wide receiver picks over the next whatever years doing it? They have great weapons. The whole thing. It was kind of the same thing when I was scouting Mac Jones. The whole time it's like, is it because he's throwing to Devonta Smith and all these guys, or is it because he's being accurate, a good pocket passer, those whole things? I think you can't knock him for it. I think he showed in the Georgia game, again, to reference that, he kind of elevated his weapons, especially, I know things got a little bit slower when Marvin Harrison Jr. got injured, but he showed he could kind of be an elevator, not just a product of his supporting cast. So I think it's always something to consider. Having those great weapons to kind of, pick apart defenses with shouldn't be a knock on you as you get to a pro, but it does make a lot of guys, tape look a little better than it should.
All right. So you said Will Levis is your 4th guy there, yes. But 365 days ago, you also predicted that Will Levis, even if he's the 4th QB, he would be a top 5 pick. Abe and I thought you were out of your mind. But it looks like it's going to be close. Do you think he goes in the top 5? Are there 4 QBs taken in the top 5?
A month ago, I would have said yes. I think one of them is going to fall out. It sounds more as we get closer, it's going to be Stroud. But I'm going to stick to my guns and say Levis will end up being the one who falls a little bit. Then the Texans may try to scoop him up from 12 or a pick later, something like that. But I think the Colts are the team that's the Levis or Richardson team. I'll talk about that maybe a little later. But I think if they choose Richardson over Levis, then he could slide. But the Texans link it's been linked by Lance Erline saying Stroud, Will Anderson, or Tyree Wilson will be the pick. Haven't heard Levis in there, but then you look at the betting lines and he's gone from whatever plus 2,000 to the odds-on favorite for the pick. So a little bit of disconnect between the local beat writers and the national movement, which was I think the same thing they had last year. A lot of the Jets local writers were thinking O-line, and then the national guys had Sauce Gardner, CB. Same thing with Stingley as well.
So if shit goes haywire with the quarterbacks on Thursday night, and one of them falls or whatever, two of them fall, in the craziest situation possible, I'm talking like Aaron Rodgers sitting in the green room waiting till whatever pick. What is the lowest down in the draft where we will see all these 4 quarterbacks be off the board? Is it 12? Is it 15? Where's the lowest the last guy would drop, you think?
I think nightmare scenario for one of these guys is they don't match up with their I think they could fall all the way to 23 in the Vikings. I don't know how many teams in the mid, the 10s to 20s will be interested in QB. You got to assume the Patriots had a visit with Will Levis. I know the Buccaneers have been rumored a little bit. But other than that, it's not a ton of guys. I mean, I doubt the Lions will be looking, kind of with their second pick. But I think if they do make it past that middle range, and it's kind of similar to what you saw last year. I just lost the entire page. Similar to what you saw last year. If they don't have a first-round grade on the quarterback, he's probably going to fall and fall hard. You saw that a little bit with Malik Willis, who at this time, like Monday, was over-under was 10.5 for the NFL draft. He went in the third round. So I don't think that's going to happen with any of these guys. They're obviously a little bigger, better, stronger, but I think 23 is where you could see a quarterback go. I don't believe if those 4 are gone, though, that the Vikings are even remotely interested in a Hendon Hooker. And I can't believe I had to say his name.
All right, Dave, give us your top 4 rankings.
My top 4 rankings, number 1, my boy, Anthony Richardson. Shoot for the stars, and if you miss, well, you'll probably be able to draft a quarterback in 4 years anyway. That's how I view it. My number 2, I'm going to go Bryce Young. I'm going to go with the weight situation. Even if he does put on a bunch of weight or everything, is that frame going to build out to the point where his mobility is inhabited? I don't know. We'll find out. Number 3, I have CJ Stroud, solely because Maurer told us that Levis would be top 5, and I'm sticking to my guns that he won't. So that's a pride. That's a pride thing. So I've got Richardson, Young, Stroud, Levis. Sean.
Okay. We reacted to a bunch of films. So I've actually been grinding the tape too, which is like four videos of 4-minute highlight tapes of these guys from last year. So that's my version of film. Things to note. 1, Anthony Richardson, like you just draft him and you just hope that he's the guy. Cause if he's the guy, then holy shit, he's definitely the guy you want. I got a little scared off the Stroud stuff because, like I said, I take it into the equation, and an outlier like that I think is real. But his tape, it's like he looks like it looked like he would be one of the best pro quarterbacks. With that all being said, he was throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., which, holy shit, he actually might be the best wide receiver I've ever seen in my entire life. Every single one of Stroud's throws was to him. So you were talking about, evaluating Ohio State quarterbacks, Bama quarterbacks. The quite opposite is with my third guy, Bryce Young. He was thrown to, for the first time in Bama history, non-first rounders and not a stable of first rounders. And then I like Will Levis. I'm rooting for him. I want to preface with all that. I think he stinks, personally. He's one where, like, I know Richardson didn't have the numbers and the reps at Florida, but Levis, like, he didn't put up stats at Kentucky. He didn't, like, do anything in the SEC against those defenses. So, yeah, I think Levis is 4 for me. Is there anything I said that you think is out of line or was accurate?
Talking to me?
No, I'm not talking to you. I want Josh's opinion.
No, sorry. I thought you were talking to Abe. That's on me. No. I
Rarely will Jack ask for my opinion.
That's all a valid concern, and now I'm kind of upset I didn't put Levis higher with you guys having him so low. I think Levis is had pro, like NFL coordinators, things like that, shows the grit. But to your point, yeah, he shows a little bit of that Carson Wentz panic pocket presence. Couldn't complete a pass in the red zone versus like Miami of Ohio. So there's a lot of concerning things, but if you just isolate that he's got a big arm and his release looks like Aaron Rodgers, shit, man.
So I don't really watch that much tape because I'll never forget a few years ago I did watch tape and I put on Corey Davis's Western Michigan tape. And I assumed he was going to genuinely be you got to watch this tape, Jack. It's the best tape I've ever seen granted it's a YouTube video, so it's all of his highlights, so they're all going to be sick. But the way that I like to evaluate, or the way that I like to compare prospects, and I'm going to do a rapid fire with you, Josh, put you on the spot here. I'm going to give you all 4 quarterbacks, And I want you to give me, if they all hit their ceiling, who their quarterback in the NFL comparison is. Like who they're most similar to. So we'll start with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, easy one, kind of Cam Newton. I think that makes a lot of sense. The one, if you're going a little farther back, that I fits a little better is Dante Culpepper. When he was out of UCF, that big, 250-pound frame, cannon arm, but has a lot to figure out. Obviously, Cam Newton went one, but I think that's a good athletic comp.
And I feel like I'm going to answer Bryce Young for you, just because I feel like any time there's a short quarterback in the draft, the obvious is like, oh well, he could be Drew Brees. Is that the case?
No, wouldn't he be more Russ?
They're both short. No, that's probably what they said about Russ.
Russ has more of a cannon arm, is better outside of the pocket. He's definitely more of a Breeze. I like to say Burrow, but Burrow's
Noodle
not
arm.
6 feet tall. So no, that's not what I meant. But like, I reference him to Burrow in all of the positive ways. Like from the bottom of my heart, I mean that. But it's I think that's the best case scenario from him. He won't get those comps because he's 5'8", so it's a different ball game. I keep saying 5'8", and he probably is actually 5'10" or 11, something like that.
But, CJ Stroud.
I think Stroud. This is gonna. I mean, you're talking about ceilings, but Goff. I think Goff is like a good comp for him, and I think I'm talking the peaks of Goff. I think he's kind of less mobile, but can make the throws all 3 levels. Is good. I don't know if he'll ever be that elevator. So I think last
but not least, Will Levis, and just say Kirk Cousins.
No, I think he gets the Josh Allen.
We want to do if we're gonna do high end, I was gonna say maybe like Justin Herbert, kind of similar in that. Maybe
no wonder GMs are creaming their pants over this guy.
Herbert had a similar narrative, like when he was coming out.
That's true.
We can, he was like, oh, he's big, arm QB who sucks. And it's like half of them end up, working out, half of them don't for a million different reasons. But the same thing with Herbert, same thing with Josh Allen. So I could see the, hatred towards Levis being overblown a little bit to him as a prospect. But
there you go.
365 days from now, give us your hot pick, your hot take. Who's the major riser?
So, for quarterbacks next year, I'm going to throw out a guess, and one of them is going to not be as good anymore because I think he might get beat out at Tennessee, but I think Joe Milton from Tennessee, it'll be a redshirt sophomore or something like that, huge cannon arm, athletic, the whole 9. But then my Spicer one I think is Bo Nix next year. I think Bo Nix at Oregon, kind of similar to Levis, will be like 23 and a half, maybe 24. But could end up being in that conversation.
I'm just so happy he didn't say Quinn Ewers.
No.
Wait, why not?
He just beat out the best prospect of all time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and Caleb Williams, I assume, no matter what happens next year, is he generational, like they're saying?
So I think he'll end up being on the similar path of Bryce Young, where everyone's like, oh, he's generational. I think we tossed that around a little too leniently. Caleb Williams is going to end up, I know I kind of beat this to death. I'm picking on the short guys a little bit. He's going to end up measuring in under 6 feet at the combine, most likely. Obviously, a little bit of a different frame, a little bit better thrower. But to say generational, those to me are usually like the Andrew Lucks, the Trevor Lawrences, things like that. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a very, very good quarterback prospect. I think 3 or 4 teams are actively tanking right now, to get that pick. But
maybe the Ravens.
It should be interesting. I don't know if he's a sure number 1 overall pick, kind of with how many good, young, strong, athletic quarterbacks there are out in the league. So it'll be interesting after one more year.
All right, well, you're cool. 1 for 1 on your year out takes. So we'll come back to this next year and see if you can write it again.
I want to squeeze as much time out of you as possible, so I know we only have 15 to 20 minutes before Abe's got a huge playoff game. So we'll spend a little less time on these, but Bijan Robinson, my Texas Longhorns. I'll start with my hot take. Bijan Robinson will not be what everyone else thinks he's going to be. This isn't, oh my God, the reaction there. My hot take is this isn't 2008, and I watched a lot of Bijan Robinson. He was as good as Reggie Bush, in my opinion, in college. where he was best was in his volume. So you give him 20 carries, he'll 4, he'll wear you down, and then it's 28 yards. He doesn't have the breakaway speed. Now, where will he be unbelievable at the next level, in my opinion, is in the passing game. So I come from a camp of never, ever, ever, ever draft a running back in the first round, literally under any circumstance. And even with Bijan, someone was asking me, like, at what point would you? And I started being like, all right, maybe late. And then I was like, no, it just makes no sense to draft a running back that high. But based off of your reaction, it feels like you may disagree.
No, I'm just a little shocked. Your take on running backs don't matter, like overrides your Texas Longhorns fan. So I kind of had the opposite take on Bijan, where I think he's really, really good prospect. Like, he should be getting the same hype that Saquon Barkley got
for sure
that year. The big difference between him is his broken tackle rates are absurd.
Crazy.
And those directly translate to the NFL. So I think he's more like Jonathan Taylor as a runner, willing to go inside the tackles, explode through things like that. But he's more of a Saquon receiver. So I love him. I think in this weak draft class, the big questions GMs will be asking themselves is, do we have a player with a first-round grade over him? And I think once you get to the 10s, maybe even at 8 to Atlanta, teams will start considering that. But I think Bijan should be getting hyped. The one big concern would be, over 1,000+ touches in college. Will that hold up?
So you said Atlanta at 8. What kind? Because it feels like Bijan is kind of the biggest question mark, not in terms of talent, but in terms of where he's going to go. Because I feel like, based off what we're hearing about Bijan, had Zeke Elliott not been taken 4 by Dallas and how that played out, had Saquon Barkley not been taken 2 from the Giants or whatever he was, Bijan would have been there. He would have been a top 5 guy because teams haven't learned yet that you don't do that. So what is the range where you see Bijan going? Is it 8 to 30? Is it 8 to 20? Is it 8 to 14? Where do you see that kind of range going?
I think his absolute floor, and I know this may be a little bold, but it's probably 19 to the Buccaneers. I think the teams that will probably consider him the most is the Buccaneers and then the Commanders at pick 16. Those are two teams with coaching staffs and GMs who need to win this year in order to save their jobs, which usually causes people to think a little short-sighted, a little stupid.
Like that angle. I like that.
But because they need to do that, they're going – and they don't really have – all that great quarterbacks. So you're going to have something that's keeping your offense going, a threat in the backfield to hand it off to 20, 25 times a game. So I think those are the most likely destinations for him. I think, the Bucs, unless there's a tackle on their board, one of the top, 4 tackles, because they don't have a left tackle, they're going to end up taking Bijan around 9.
So can you promise me right now that Bijan won't be taken 10 by the Eagles? Can you promise me that?
So I was leaning against it, and then Howie gave that whole, he's a playmaker. I don't think it's going to happen now. I don't know. I think GMs kind of lie through their teeth, and I think Howie.
I mean, look, if there were,
because Jack, I've been talking about myself. I've been talking myself into if somehow he fell to 30. I've been talking myself into that.
There's no shot. I guarantee he's not falling to 30. He's the NFL GMs have learned, but that sexy carrot dangling in front of their eyes. We're gonna get Bijan at 19. Like, there's no way he goes that long. But I could see Philly being like, all right, we went to the Super Bowl, we brought a lot of people back, and it's like a freebie, right? Like, in their head, they could pretty much be like, we already have another first. It wouldn't shock me. I would laugh forever.
Yeah. It would shock me because the defense needs to get younger. The defense needs to get younger at some point. The secondary needs to get younger.
Yeah, you guys are trash. We know. Okay, but what I wanted to say to Josh was that, he's making this statement that Washington doesn't have a back. They have Brian Robinson. That the Bucs don't have a back. They have Rachaad White. It's like, yes, Bijan is better than those players, but how much better that those two shitty teams are going to burn a first-round pick on a running back who's, even if he's much, much better, like, what is he worth to their team? A half a win, 1 win? Like, if that? I can't with the running backs. But running backs aren't the hot topic anymore. We have beaten that dead horse more than you've beaten the short people up on this episode. Are tight ends the new running backs? I saw a little graph, some data, so Abe, shield your eyes, but it looks like drafting tight ends aren't as safe as they might appear, and that there's no reason to take one in the first round. Are you seeing that?
Me? I assume.
Yeah.
No, I think the right tight ends are worth it in the first round, and I know that's a little bit, of a broad statement, but I think you see some of the best tight ends ever were drafted in the second, third round. I think those skew the numbers a little bit. I think adding a tight end to your offense, at least an inline one who can block and run, opens up what you can do offensively to, a crazy degree where coordinators and coaches would want that. I think if you look at their success rates, their EPAs, I'll dive into all that stuff. If they're actually adding to the team, I doubt it. I think the NFL has a tougher time of projecting these first-round tight ends and how well they'll produce. I think it's not that tight ends don't matter. I think we struggle evaluating tight ends as a league.
There it is. Okay, I love that. So that's where it's worth it to take a first-round tight end if you knew. But what you're saying is no one really knows.
There's no certain. It's kind of I think running backs is almost you take them in the first round, you're getting a pretty good running back. I think the tight ends, and to your point, maybe should be getting a little more, hate in the first round because it's so much harder to project their projection from college to the NFL because they don't always play in line, they don't always play with their hand, and they're not blocking, NFL DNs. So it's definitely a tough transition. And what you'll see is sometimes it takes multiple years for those tight ends to hit. So which is why a lot of teams, instead of drafting tight ends early, what they'll do is sign veteran tight ends who were previously drafted early, the Hayden Hursts of the world, things like that, where you can get, the contribution from them.
Yeah, Evan Ingram had a fantastic year. I think that's the same concept.
And to Josh's point, to Josh's point about that, we still, to this day, we still think Kyle Pitts could probably be sick at some point. But he's more of a receiver, but nobody really knows. And he was taken, fourth overall?
Yeah, but if Marcus Mariota was throwing Jamar Chase balls, it wouldn't go well. So it's tough to evaluate. But hey, you know what? No, but at least Atlanta is going to draft Bijan so they could have more weapons for Desmond Ridder to get the ball too. Let's flip to the other side of the ball. Are these not two of the most I guess we do use that word a lot, but Will Anderson couldn't be blocked in his entire college career, a little bit maybe last season, and then Jalen Carter was the guy, obviously off the field concerns, but it seems like you're going to be able to potentially get a little value on these guys. Are they as good as they were originally pegged to be?
Yeah, I think they're both, those elite defensive prospects. I think the problem you have now is Jalen Carter has a ton of off the field issues that people are seriously weighing concerning the whole nine, and it's probably going to work out to the point where he falls just close enough for the Eagles to take him.
Do you think it could happen? Do you think it really could happen with Jalen Carter falling to 10?
I think if Jalen Carter gets to past pick 5, the Eagles and Bears
will pick up the 5.
Eagles and Bears at 9-10 will look into it. I think the Eagles are less likely because they only have 6 picks in the entire draft. They're probably more likely to trade back. The Will Anderson thing, I think Will Anderson is very similar to the Kayvon Thibodeau prospect, where he blew up as a redshirt sophomore, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And then his entire junior year, his tape was basically left to be over-scrutinized, so it had eyes on him nonstop. And what you saw this year was a little bit frustration from Will Anderson when he wasn't impacting the game. He was false starting. He was jumping off sides a ton, causing problems. So I think what you saw from him was a little bit of frustration this year that he wasn't having his 20-sack season, but I still think he's one of those elite prospects. And you kind of see him have the same draft process as Thibodeau, where he's getting dinged a little now, but I still think he'll end up being, a surefire top 5 pick.
Was the biggest bullshit smokescreen that have come out in the last 2 months that several GMs have just full-on taken Jalen Carter off their board?
Yeah, it was like the Raiders have taken Jalen Carter. It's it was all this ridiculous. Yeah, I was just, no, that's just not true. I think even Seattle said we're going to have to basically revisit our policy on off the field issues. He's that good of a defensive prospect.
Then what happened at the combine with him?
So his pro day, he showed up out of shape, overweight.
Pro day, whatever terrible. It was, yeah.
Yeah, pro day looked terrible. And then, and part of that could have been from the drag racing issues where, he ended up causing a crash. And then a lot of more stuff came out where people dug into it, where he's got, so many speeding tickets, was, insubordinate.
So do I.
All these things. But you're not, you don't have a team making millions of dollars worth of investment in you. So that's the only kind of hang up with Jalen Carter is he going to work hard? He's kind of got that same pre-draft dings on him as Isaiah Wilson, who went late first round to the Titans as an offensive tackle and then was out of the league within like 2 years, and then now is like a rapper or something like that. I don't know.
Check out
his don't diss this man's diss tracks.
No, we'll plug his mixtape here.
All right, cool. Before we get to the selfish part of the draft pod, we did run back our annual draft series. So I don't know if we prepared this for you. We didn't give you the names ahead of time, so we'll really know how much tape.
I think I might have given him some. I think I might have thrown some names to him.
All right, so the one that dropped today, Tyler Scott, wide receiver, Cincy. He's a guy. He's the guy. Yeah, Colt.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of love from pre-draft visit, all this stuff. He's electric, one of those smaller guys. And kind of a big thing this year is there's so many small, not just Bryce Young, wide receivers kind of everywhere. So he's one of those guys who's a little bit smaller but electric. He reminds me kind of Tutu Atwell when he came out of Louisville, or Isaiah McKenzie, who the Colts signed to a low 1-year deal. He's just a playmaker, speed guy. You can run him on jet sweeps, deep stuff. He's electric. So it's awesome.
Well, if the Colts get him, we've got a little clip of him saying he's pretty much faster than Tyreek Hill. So that'll be fun for you to watch.
I mean, if the Colts get him, then their entire wide receiver room is just snapback fam between him and Des Pat.
Yeah, that's true. All right, next up was Lance. Actually, yeah, he might be. Lance Boykin.
Lance Boykin?
Corner from Coastal Carolina.
He's your prototypical corner of vibes. Prototypical corner of vibes.
Oh, he
thinks he's better than you, and he knows he's better than you.
No, so he's one of those big corners, like 6'3", 200, really, quality player. Coastal's had a bunch of talented guys in their front. Gerard Clark, who Gerard Clark took a year off, but I could see him kind of fitting in anywhere. I think he's one of a later round guy for sure, but competent in zone. I think that's probably where he projects best, although he may disagree with me a little bit there.
Oh, he just wants to beat you up. He'll drop into a zone, but he wants to get physical too. The guy was obsessed with press coverage.
Himself.
So yeah, we loved it.
So I may have misspoke a little bit, but corners who love to tackle, play that press man, him, Isaiah Witherspoon, Tyreek Stevenson, those are my type of guys. It just helps your defensive scheme a ton.
All right,
the one that I'm most excited about is this one. Caleb Murphy, Division II prospect who absolutely tore up Division II at, I want to say, Ferris State.
Yeah, he set the record.
So I think they won the
22 and a half sacks or something.
Yeah, he's got rings. He made that clear. He's got multiple rings. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no. So I'm doing actually a whole study on kind of these FCS and lower players. You basically have to be a very good athlete in order to be even recognized by the NFL, end up on their radar. So he's a great athlete, obviously has a lot of bend, things like that. For those guys, it's almost like, how did he end up going to D2? I mean, he could have transferred, things like that. But for him, just kind of with he's a little shorter on the length side. His arms are maybe under 33 inches, something like that. But with his bend and ability, I think he projects well as a late-round pick as well.
Yeah, I think we asked him, because he started D2 and then transferred to a different D2 school. But I'm sure that the NFL teams got the answers out of him that they wanted. The one we rocked last night, Mike Morris. So graded awfully at the combine. You know who he is, Mike Moe.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. He had a bad combine, but had, he was defensive lineman of the year in the Big Ten. What do you see on Mike Moe?
So bad combines kind of expected for a guy who's 6'6", 300 pounds with that interior outside flexibility on early downs. Think he can be that quality 4-eye. I think that's where he projects best, kind of playing that right inside the tackle position. The whole line, but
wear glasses, cool.
Like, this is like the ultimate NFL dilemma, where it's you try to weigh college production versus the athletic ability, and I think his college production was good enough to a point in the Big Ten where you play the Iowa offensive line, you play the Penn State offense, you play a bunch of good offensive lines in that division to where and Michigan's own in practice every day, to where he's going to be tough, physical, and be able to have a long career.
And last but not least, the guy that you've watched a shit ton of tape on, the last guy on the list, Penn State's own Sean Clifford.
Oh, my guy. Yeah. So
Be
Clifford.
Nice.
I mean, no. I again, like, it's so easy for us to throw shade. I'm a 6 foot tall, unathletic kid. Basically my entire job is to pass judgment on kids' athletic abilities. And so it's a weird position I'm in, but I mean, he's had a ton of interest in the pre-draft process and taking visits everywhere. I think he's viewed as a developmental QB by a lot of the league. I think they're interested in him as an athlete also a little bit as well, kind of the Tommy Stevens Penn State thing when he was selected in the 7th round. Those Taysom Hill type guys have a role. I don't think he's necessarily a great passer or anything like that. But
wait, Tommy Stevens got drafted?
Tommy Stevens got drafted in the 7th round by the New Orleans Saints to be Taysom Hill 2.0.
There's no way he's still there.
No, he's in the USFL. He's with or XFL with the Brahmas or something like that.
Gotcha.
Try to keep up
all
on
right,
all the
So Sean or Hendon Hooker? Who's better?
Sean. I believe Sean is still under the age of 20, 30 years old, whatever.
Yeah, what did Hendon Hooker do to your family?
Hendon Hooker didn't do anything to my family. I just shout out to his agents. They're doing a great job of pushing him this whole pre-draft process. They got Mike Tannenbaum saying he's the best quarterback in this draft, which I'll have to talk to Mike about. I think it's a little insane, but he's a 25-year-old QB coming off a torn ACL, and the Tennessee offense it's kind of not gimmicky, but it's a spread offense. It doesn't really translate that well to the NFL. So maybe I'm just way out there and missing the whole thing. But for a quarterback to take him in the first round, the reason you take him in the first round is to get that 50-year option. Do I really care about a 50-year option on a quarterback who's going to be 30 during that?
The funny thing is, I think if you target he wasn't even that good at 25, that's a real thing. And it's the same thing with the NBA guys. It's at 30, if it's his first, who cares? He could play from 30 to 38, right? Rodgers is Brady, there's plenty of older quarterbacks who are just as good. If it's because of his athleticism waiting, I get it, but I don't think just because of when his second contract is up, I'm necessarily out on him. There's many other reasons.
No, I think more being 25, a lot of these GMs believe in age curves, things like that. It affects your development. How close to you, how close to your ceiling are you when you're 25? A lot closer than when you're 21 or 20 when Trey Lance. Trey Lance is about to enter his 3rd year in the NFL, and he's going to be younger than Hendon Hooker. He's going to be younger than Will Levis. He's going to be younger than all of these. Not saying Trey Lance was a good pick by any means, but the age does matter, when projecting long term.
Okay, I'm still holding my Trey Lance stock for the record, but
that's because he might be a Raven in due time.
No, that's not why. But we'll finish with the speed round. First question: is Marvin Harrison Jr. generational?
Yeah, definition of it, no doubt in my mind. He should be in the conversation for number 1 next year.
Wow. So. All right. He's as special as it seems. All right. Now we're going to do our speed picks on where our 3 teams are going in the first round. Start with your Colts. What do you think?
Awesome. I know a lot of Will Levis buzz, but I'm going to follow, the crumbs and go Anthony Richardson. So Chris Ballard loves, traits, ability. He always says bet on the traits, bet on the high-end traits. I think Anthony Richardson has proved that he has that. He took a 10 RAS last year in Jelani Woods at tight end. He's always looking for freaks, uniques, things like that. Jim Irsay's plane's been down in Gainesville a good amount. This is now the Colts Twitter dive.
I'm 20 minutes from Gainesville right now. I couldn't get a trip down here. I had to fly into Orlando. I could have just gotten on Irsay's plane.
Got to call Jim. But I think more when you get into, looking at the specifics, it's Steichen. Steichen obviously worked with a bunch of quarterbacks, Rivers, but most recently with Jalen Hurts. But then the QB coach, Cam Turner, his 2 most recent jobs was with the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray. and with the Carolina Panthers as the QB coach with Cam Newton. I think those two tend to lead me to believing that Richardson is the guy they prefer. They also sent their highest ranking scout to his pro day. Again, I'm just trying to read between the lines. I don't know if I'm getting bogged down by all the fans and the fandom in me that wants it to be Richardson, but I think that's where the Colts are at right now.
I was going to ask if that's what you were doing, but you gave plenty of other information that I think supplants your point. All right, what about my Ravens? Who are we drafting?
So I think the Ravens could go a bunch of different directions. My favorite pick for them is Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. A little bit of a lesser-known name. Transfer from Georgia, played slot corner for them when they won one of their national championships. Was a freak. Played outside of Miami when he transferred. Had a great Senior Bowl. The Ravens obviously need help at corner. He provides that inside-outside flexibility. He likes to hit. He's physical, and he's 6 feet tall. He's not. I like to call him. I think he's a bigger version of Mike Hilton, the nickel who plays for the Bengals. And I think when the Ravens get to their pick, they may be deciding between him or a corner or Miles Murphy, defensive end, something like that. But I think they need a ton of help at corner.
Whoever it is going to somehow be good, which is fucking insane. I saw one today where the Ravens were getting Joey Porter Jr., and I'm like, he's going to be sick.
That's it. I mean, I
put it in the chat today. It's like the Ravens haven't missed a first-round pick since like Brashad Perryman in 2014. And not just misses, like all second contract guys, like real starters. But Eagles get 2 picks.
First, huh?
Yeah.
Eagles get 2 picks. So I'm going to go, very
Wait, do you think we'll use both of those picks?
I think you'll definitely try your best to trade down from number 10. I think that could be for a team trying to jump Tennessee for a tackle, maybe in that range. But I think with 6 picks in the draft, knowing the way Howie wants to work, he's going to want to move down. If he's forced to sit there and make that pick, I'd lean Luka Van Ness just because Luka Van Ness, freak athlete, didn't even start at Iowa. That's kind of the point we've reached in the NFL where you don't even need to be a starter to be a top 10 pick. He's got all the tools, all the size, ability, and I think Howie's going to default to the trenches again and try to rebuild those up. And I think if Carter is not available or not available on the drop, then Van Ness is going to be.
I hope they draft this Van Ness guy because every time there's a 6-man drafted in the NBA draft, Abe loves to rip. Like, how could you draft someone who couldn't even make the starting lineup? Right? Like, that's going to be gold.
But my thing with Howie is, like, I don't know these guys. They're Bend, they're Wham, they're IQ, they're S2, they're Siri, whatever the fuck you want to call it. If you draft an offensive or defensive line, I'm cool with it. That's how I do it.
Howie's kind of earned, or maybe not on wide receivers, things like that, but he's earned the benefit of the doubt at this point.
And talk to me about at 30, because I saw a mock draft today with us taking Zay Flowers, who's gotten a lot of hype. Recently, some smoke's come out about Jackson Smith, Nestle, whatever his last name is. I don't see it I don't see us taking JSN. I don't think Zay Flowers falls that far. What do the Eagles do at 30?
Yeah, I think corner is still very much in play. With the 2 contracts they handed out, Slays was kind of a bunch of fake money for him, kind of just make him happy. Bradbury is also getting older, things like that. So I think in this deep CB class, the Eagles are just going to play the numbers, let best available fall to them, and could be a ton of different guys at that pick. I doubt it's a Julius Brents, probably more of maybe a Tyreek Stevenson. I don't know. I keep pushing them the whole night.
All right, I lied. One final question, then we all have to go. What's the draft day shocker? Is it D-Hop? Is it something out of left field? Like, I don't think we saw Hollywood Brown or A.J. Brown last year. Who's the shocking move that's going to be made?
Yeah, I guess probably D-Hop to Buffalo. I know the Ravens were in on him. It sounded like Lamar said, bring me Hopkins and bring me OBJ, both of them, and the Ravens said, well, we can do one. So they did that. Got OBJ. So I think Hopkins has been kind of clear on where he wants to play. Either the Chiefs or Bills, but come on, blow me. Like, it's not up to you. But everyone would want to see that, and I think the Bills kind of I don't think they'll trade 27. I don't think he's worth that, but they've kind of said this class is chalked. Let's just trade it for veteran players and kind of go now. But
all right. Well, we're excited to see your mock because let's enter it in this puppy. And if we're going to have you on every year, let's
there's
get
a
some
legit
data
competition?
Yeah. And it does average score. And
I'm fucking making one.
You doing any props?
I'm making one. One last question. Make us some money. What's the best bet on the board?
So I'm inclined to. I got a bunch written down here. I was suggesting to people yesterday, Paris Johnson, number 3 overall to the Cardinals at plus 4,000. Looks like that ship sailed a little bit. I think it was down to plus 700 when I checked. Basically, just they've had 7 tackles for pre-draft visits out of their 30, and if they can't trade down, and then Kyler Murray, which I don't know what weight he possibly could have in that organization with a new GM, new coach, but he said, draft me an offensive lineman. So we'll see.
Okay.
I think the good money to be made is Giants first pick corner plus 200 maybe. Deontay Banks under 20.5. I wouldn't be surprised if he could go in front of Christian Gonzalez. Lions to take QB first pick plus 1,000 right now. They're a little sneaky. I think they have interest in Stroud. I also think they don't plan on picking in the top 10 ever again. And when you kind of have that mentality,
I got news for you, Detroit.
Well, no, it's not even their pick this year. It's the Rams pick.
I promise you that at some point in the next 6 years, the Lions will be back in the top 10. Whether it's their pick or somebody else's. They haven't won a playoff game in 31 years. And they don't plan on ever picking in the top 10? Come on.
Yeah. And then I got Hendon Hooker over 31.5, just to, as a gotta be true to myself. Then these are the ones I kind of like the most. Quentin Johnson over 26.5. Stetson Bennett just to be drafted minus 130. I don't know why the books are
he's minus 130 to get drafted.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lock.
I thought so. When I put on my tinfoil, hat originally, I had Josh McDaniels pulling, the same thing he did in Denver and taking like Stetson Bennett like early round 2. They waited Tebow. But Stetson Bennett just to be drafted minus 130. Why not? Anthony Richardson to the Colts plus 500. Lock it in.
That seems like a fandom bet.
This one's for Eagleson, Miami Dolphins first pick running back plus 600.
Oh, I'm taking that. I need that.
Let's hammer that.
We're hammering it.
Emmanuel Forbes to be a first rounder minus 400. Got to take the free money, when it's there. So.
Yeah, just send me a screenshot of all of these.
Oh
yeah, and I'm a lock those. Yeah, I need to lock those in.
Sports Discord.
There we go.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Josh, as always, we appreciate you coming on and doing the work that we don't have to do. We'll enter you in the mock draft competition. We'll see you in 365 days for whoever the fuck you said was going to be there that won't be. But we appreciate you giving us some of your time and doing the work for us.
No doubt. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, brother. Peace.